We didn't talk about it yet, but your general manager of your New York Rangers extended Chris Drury. It felt to me, and you obviously have the pulse of this team, and tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but it felt to me that during the course of the season, even though Laviolette was getting a ton of blame, that Chris Drury was right there, and some Ranger fans even blaming him more. Those stories were coming out of how the players in the locker room had a big problem with Drury. I know that Dolan loves Chris Drury. Give us your take on that.
So, in the podcast that me and CeeLo did about the Rangers' final day on, breakup day and all that other stuff that was going on around the team, we knew that Laviolette, at that time, we knew he was fired. I knew he was going to be fired earlier than that, just simply because he looked like he was completely disengaged on the bench.
Yeah.
And then there were stories that he wouldn't go into the locker room after the game. And then I was saying how certain NHL coaches don't go into the locker room after the game, which is so foreign to me as a football player, because the coach is always in the locker room. But I also said in that podcast that I fully expected Chris Drury to be back, and if not, he would be extended. So he's, Jim Dolan respects him, likes him, believes that he, really wants to do well here and wants to do the right thing, and actually has done well here for 3 years. But he's made a lot of questionable moves, and I also said in that podcast that I thought that the disintegration of this particular team this past year started right after they had lost their third game in a row to the Florida Panthers last year and then got knocked out of the playoffs, because everybody, Ranger fans, were all over Jacob Trouba, the captain. And Chris Drury never came out, at least I never saw it, and never supported Jacob Trouba, the captain of the hockey team, which Chris Drury at one time was himself. So he knows exactly what the captain's supposed to do. And this guy was coming off of a broken foot, and he was the one guy that was throwing his body around left and right all over the place. And if the hockey culture is what I said it was when Matt Martin was basically having his last game at the Islanders, and it's a culture about how you support each other, you respect each other, especially those people that require that respect or should get that respect, like my son-in-law, Jacob Trouba is right in that category. And I just think that the way that they mishandled that, and then the way that they also kind of threatened Barclay Goodrow, who came here as a free agent and signed a contract and had a no movement clause a part of it, or a no trade clause a part of it. And then they used, Chris Drury had to use that like a threatening situation to get rid of him. That doesn't go over well in the locker room. And Chris Drury is a former player who now, as a general manager, has to be ruthless. I get that, but had to be much more aware of, to me, the publicity around all of it and the way that it all went down. And then when you have a disengaged coach, at least that's the way it looked, from where I sat, and a team that is not trusting the front office. I'm not saying that they don't like the ownership. I'm sure they love the ownership because they get treated really well. But don't trust the front office. You're going to have what you have happen this past season, the President's Trophy winner. So I knew that they were not going to fire him. I knew that for a fact. But now he gets to hire his third coach. And they said they're not going to bring in Joe Quenneville, so that's off the table. Now the question is, who do they go after, and is it going to be the right guy that's going to be engaged with this team? And the other thing, too, and I give Brian Boyle a lot of credit for this, because I saw him do this the other day. He was talking to Larry Brooks and Molly Walker on their podcast, and he was talking about how, whatever the front office does should not impact you on the ice as a player. Even if they put your name out there in trades, and Brian Boyle was traded a number of times.
Yeah.
You still have to go out on the ice, and you still have to play, and you still have to be determined. And there's too many good players on this team to have happened to them the way that it did happen, because, it's a lot of internal drama crap. Nobody wants to hear about that. All they want is their team on the ice playing hockey, just like I want my football team on the field playing football, or my basketball team tonight going out there and reacting to what the Pistons are doing to them.